Yeah, so I mean, basically, yeah. The Open was frustrating this year.
So we're at CrossFit Broad Street. It's in Media, Pennsylvania, which is where my family lives. So Dakota's the owner, and he was nice enough to let me come in and have free reign of their side room so I can train while I'm home for Easter weekend. And we can film some hanging with Tim, have a little bit of fun. So starting off the day with the French Throwdown Qualifier. So they're not doing any invites, so anybody that wants to do the French Throwdown has to do their qualifier. So as a just in case scenario, in case Iceland doesn't go the way I plan, I'm gonna do this to make sure I've got a backup plan. So the first workout that I'll be doing today is 45 thrusters at 135 and 45 chest to bar, and you can break it up however you want. The workout never, ever hurts less. Would be where you have to be. And then, I mean, there are guys that will be faster, for sure. But I feel like sub 3 at 135 is pretty good. I think I've done a 115 chest to bar Fran in like 230 something. So seems like mid to high 2s would be good for a 135.
253, okay.
All right,
I'm off then.
Yeah. All right, so time was 2:53 upon video review. I don't think I could go any faster. I think the game plan was good. You can turn that down a little bit. Just hit the volume on the side of your phone. Yeah. Yeah, I think the game plan was good. I think 21:15.9 at this weight's a really bad idea. 21 thrusters out of the gate would just throttle your heart rate, and you'd have no shot. It's interesting because it makes your heart want to explode, but the heavy thrusters also make it much more of a muscle fatigue workout than a normal friend. Normal friend is just try and finish before the pain comes in. This one, like, the thrusters just get pretty unbearable to lock out. So the third set, so the second set of 10, sucked bad. And then I had to break up the pull-ups, but the break was really short, like maybe 3 or 4 seconds. So I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, good start to a Saturday.
So today's snatch work, we've been doing this kind of quick single cycle on, what's today? On Saturdays. So we've been doing it with cleans, doing it with snatches. So for today, it was basically 6 singles every 4 seconds, 5 singles every 6, 4 every 8, 3 every 10, and then 2 singles every 12 seconds. And then on your last rep, every time you add an additional overhead squat at the end. You get 2 minutes rest in between sets. So it's really good for working on pulling off the ground quickly and getting comfortable with not being perfectly set. So obviously we spend a lot of time working technically on the lifts, and today's a little bit more about speed. So it's a little bit more about kind of competition CrossFit focused.
One of my favorite exercises, and it's probably my best lift. And the first 3 years I was at regionals, there was a snatch event of some kind, hang snatch, overhead squat from the floor. I missed my opening lift for 3 years straight and gave everybody, including myself, a heart attack. So 2013 was overhead squat from the floor. I DNF'd out of the weekend, flunked out. 2014, I think, was a max hang snatch. Missed my opening lift. 2015, I think that was the snatch event in Hartford. It was just a snatch from the floor. Missed my first lift. And then I think the year after that, 2016, we had the snatch ladder. So I finally got out of my bad habits.
So I think I went, for the sixes, I went 175, 95 for the fives, 215 for the four, and then I went 245 for three, and then 275 for the double. And that was all after doing chest to bar Fran less than an hour ago, so things went pretty well, all things considered. And yeah, it's interesting because if you see in the earlier lifts, especially the 6 and the 5, 4 seconds is barely enough time to get your hands back on the bar. So it's you have to actually press the bar to the ground and have your hands on it when it hits. And again, that's a really useful type of single depending on what kind of competition setting you're in. So a workout like regionals, it was last year, 2 years ago, the power snatch bar facing burpee sprint. It was 4 minute workout, something like that. You're ripping 175 singles off the ground as quick as you can, basically chasing it down, and then getting used to not having a perfect grip. So knowing that your hands are going to be slightly offset and just kind of getting used to adjusting to that and not having it affect your lift too dramatically. So we just finished that up. Going to do a little bit of kind of prep for the second piece. So now we've got some intervals. They're going to be really gross. So it's a 20 calorie assault bike, 10 sandbag squats. I think it's in front rack, I have to check. And then a 100-foot sandbag carry. And then there's rest. And then there's a 20 calorie ski erg, 15 strict handstand push-ups, and then a 100-foot handstand walk followed by more rest. And then it's 3 rounds through of that. So intervals like these they're about attacking and over fatiguing one very specific part of the body. So the first triplet is all about just blowing up your legs and your midline. So fatiguing your legs on the bike, spiking your heart rate, not being able to breathe appropriately with an odd object in the front rack, and then just your legs by the end, you feel like you're just gonna fall over. So the 100-foot carry is really just about grit when your legs feel horrible. And then we're basically doing the same thing with the upper body and the ski strict handstand push-up, handstand walk interval. So yeah, we'll see. Should be a really good pump.
Your dad doing this with you?
Yeah, so my dad and my wife are gonna jump in. So yeah, my dad and my wife are gonna jump in for these intervals, and my mom, my sister, and her boyfriend just showed up at the gym to come hang out. So it's a family affair now. We're all here.
All right. So yeah, those intervals were super messy. Stuff like that, usually my coach programs it, designed to be unbroken. So you're supposed to obviously try and sprint those rounds as best you can. Because of the Fran, happening this morning, I changed the approach a little bit. So I tried to do the assault bike at a steady pace every time rather than an all-out dummy sprint. So I was trying to hold 85 RPMs on the assault bike, which was getting me off just under 40 seconds, plus or minus. And then I thought I could do the sandbag squats unbroken, but turns out that stopped happening round 2 because my legs completely exploded from Fran. So yeah, my round times were 135, 202, 202 for the sandbag ones. And then for the ski strict handstand walks, they were 152, 225, and then 256. So it was 1750 total total time, including rest. The second cup or triplet is something I'm really good at. Like any kind of upper body abuse, especially going into fatigued handstand walks, is something that I'm very confident with. So I really enjoyed those. You know, handstand push-ups I had to break up towards the end into 9-6 both times, but other than that, it was super fun. I always try and keep handstand walks in big unbroken sets. So usually I don't let myself do less than 50-foot unbroken increments, regardless of what the setting is, just because. You know, if they ever let you go shorter, that just makes it easier. So I always try and make it as hard as possible. But yeah, so that was the fourth piece of the day. All I've got left is some accessory and then some conditioning, just like really long aerobic steady state stuff. So I'm going to do it at home later. So I'm going to stop and grab some lunch after this. And then I'll pick up again this afternoon in 2 or 3 hours and do the steady state stuff. So it is a little pyramid of not fun stuff. So it's basically a rowing and ski erg at 60% effort, which is for us like Dave calls it my marathon pace, which sadly I know what that feels like after the games last year. So it's a 1.5K row and then a 500 ski, and then the row goes down by 100, the ski goes up by 100. So it's 1500 row, 500 ski, 1400 row, 600 ski, 1300 7, 1200 8, 1100 9, and then 1000 1000. There's no rest in between, just alternating back and forth, and I expect that to take, I mean, it's over 8K of rowing, and I didn't even do the math on the ski. It's like probably 3,500 on the ski, something like that. So it'll probably take the better part of 45 minutes later. Again, just steady state, you know, purely trying to train that aerobic system, so staying away from intensity. Some of you guys have asked what I do with heart rate zone stuff. So I don't do a lot of heart rate zone training. We do a lot of pace progression training, and then we also do a lot of stuff by field depending on the time of year. Right now, so I started using some heart rate zone stuff. I got an Apple Watch a couple months ago, and I started using that for my aerobic stuff, mostly because what we found out, I got a VO2 max done recently, and we did some lactate threshold training and stuff like that just to figure out some numbers and paces. And basically what the test showed, I won't get into the science of it because off the top of my head I'll probably say something dumb. But basically what we got into was that my aerobic threshold is not very good because I don't train at a low enough heart rate or a low enough intensity often enough. So whenever we do even our longer stuff, let's say I had like a 45-minute easy run, I would get too competitive with myself and I'd be like, oh, you need to hold like sub 8 miles. That sounds like a good idea. And basically what would end up doing is I would seek that little bit of discomfort because that's kind of what CrossFit athletes are, you know, what we're trained to do and what we train ourselves to do. So I never trained slow enough. So I got a heart rate watch to help me train slower when we have those long steady state stuff. So for me, for that piece later, I'll try and keep my heart rate under 135. So it'll be, again, very steady state stuff. So, and that's gonna be about it for the day. Yeah, so like I said, about 5 pieces. Right now, it's about noon. I started around 9 o'clock this morning, started warming up just before that. We hit Fran around 9:15. We snatched around 10 o'clock. We overhead squatted after that. Hit some intervals around 11:30. And like I said, I'll do some accessory work now, grab lunch, and then around 2:30 probably, I'll pick up that cardio work at my parents' house later because my dad's got some machines in the basement. And that'll be, that's a pretty typical training day actually. It's a pretty typical Saturday. That's what a lot of Saturdays look like for me, but usually there's some coaching mixed in there as well. Lucky enough to be on the road this weekend, so it's just exercise. No coaching, no responsibilities, no adulting.
All right, so Tim said you started CrossFit after him.
I did. Yeah, actually I had to get both my hips replaced 4 years ago. So 6 months before that I started CrossFit just to be strong enough to be a good patient. So I got my hips done, got shut down for 6 months, and then I've been doing it 3.5, 4 years now since then. So yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I was always a cardio junkie, so I like ran and did all that stuff, but this is probably the best shape I've ever been in my life at 55, so I'm totally cool with that.
It's awesome. How's watching Tim, compete pretty regularly, especially now?
I mean, the cool thing about Tim's whole thing was just like the journey. I mean, if you looked at kind of his regionals, like his open finishes and his regional finishes, it was just kind of this methodical progression. I mean, and every year something got him at regionals. 1 year it was strict muscle-ups. The next year it was handstand push-ups. And he and his coach Dave, who is awesome, basically every year something was identified as a potential failure. They just smashed it for the next 12 months, and then it wasn't a weakness anymore. And so it's been fun to watch. I mean, the year Tim made it to the games was kind of the culmination of 5 years of work. Like I said, there aren't many times in life you actually get to see a dream manifest itself like right in front of you. So I mean, in Albany, for that regionals, it was pretty amazing because it was really the culmination of 5 years of work.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, the Open was frustrating this year. Partially frustrating on myself because as an athlete and as a person, I try and hold myself obviously to a very high standard, and I don't like to allow external circumstances to affect my performances especially. But just in the interest of being honest, the Open was really hard for me this year. Week one, I got the stomach flu on Thursday night. I spent the entire weekend throwing up, lost like 9 pounds, didn't eat until like Saturday evening, from Thursday evening. And then I only did the workout once on Monday in a state of pretty, just not a great state. And I've never been sick during the Open before, so that was the first time I've been doing the Open since 2012. So it's the first time in 8 Opens that or 7 Opens, that I've ever been sick. So that was a really hard way to start. And I think just like my stress level was through the roof because I was freaking out that, not only that I wouldn't be good enough for that week, but that I was setting myself up for a little bit of a really rough 5 weeks. I managed to pull it together for that week, put up a pretty solid performance, all things considered, and after that, week 2, as frustrating as it is to say, I think is an accurate reflection of where I'm at with those movements in that workout. That workout is really hard for me. Heavy cleans under serious fatigue are just not something that that I excel at, especially squat. So like those real heavy cleans. So like I said, that workout just wasn't, it was an accurate reflection of where I am. And then I had to spend the next 3 weeks kind of digging myself out of a hole. Yeah, so week 3 went well. I was really happy with how week 3 I executed it, how everything went. Week 4 after that was, I'm already blanking out on the Open. What did we do week 4? Okay, and what was week 4 of the Open? Oh yeah, the power output workouts. Yeah, week 4, I did that workout 3 times. So I did it in the announcement Thursday night up in Canada with Paul Tremblay, Pat Vellner, and Pete Shaw and Craig Kenny. So that was a lot of fun, really cool environment, great time with those guys. I retested it on Saturday and still wasn't happy, and retested it again on Monday. So I did that workout 3 times through, and I was finally pretty happy with my final performance. I think again, an accurate reflection of where I was and where my fitness was. And then that final week came around, and I'm pretty content with how the workout went. I retested it, did significantly better the second time, but again, just in terms of like stress, that. So the final week of the Open, it was like Monday of that week, our dog started to get really sick, and she basically, on Sunday, she didn't really want to move much, was getting like really lethargic and lame, and we were getting really concerned. And then basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we were at the vet every day. By Monday afternoon, she was only moving if we were carrying her. So she had gone, essentially, she wouldn't move. So she had gone completely limp and didn't want to do anything, wasn't eating, wasn't drinking. So we took her to the vet. We had first round of testing done Monday, and then Tuesday was kind of the same story, back to the vet because things were getting worse. So Tuesday we admitted her, and she stayed the night at the vet, had a bunch of x-rays, exams, joint fluid samples, had a whole bunch of testing done. And Thursday, we finally brought her home Thursday night. And we didn't find out until Saturday that she has basically an autoimmune disease that was attacking her joints and was causing serious inflammation and pain that was not allowing her to move and making her not want to move. So basically that whole week leading into the final week of the Open, I just wasn't thinking about CrossFit at all. I was very concerned and we were really concerned and stressed out about our dog. It's anyone who has a dog knows that you love your dog like they're part of your family and they're like amazing. So, it was just a really hard week, and going into the final week of the Open, I tried to keep my head focused and kind of stay, present with what I needed to do to obviously achieve my goal of qualifying at the Open. But it was just hard. It's and when life kind of comes at you like that, it's, you do your best, but as an athlete, stress, recovery, sleep, all that stuff really adds up. And the amount of stress that we were under that entire week, it definitely just took a toll. I didn't feel like myself all weekend. I redid the workout. I did the workout Friday morning and couldn't have felt less excited about a workout. Just walked into it, started the clock, did it, finished. I heard a little bit and I walked away. Usually I get really excited for open workouts. I get fired up, start the clock, full body, nerves. You start shaking, usually you get that real excited feeling for the Open, and I just didn't get that. And Monday I had found a little bit of it because by Saturday we knew she was gonna be okay. So I slept okay for the weekend, and by Monday I felt better, but just didn't feel great. Still didn't feel like myself. So, but shit happens, life happens, and that's what happened in my life. And I did my absolute best in all of those circumstances. And, I'm proud of that and I'm happy with that effort. I'm obviously frustrated that it didn't yield the result I want, but it's over. And basically the day the Open ended, I saw I was the odd man out. I think I'm the second man out, maybe. And that was it. I knew I hadn't qualified, and I wasn't going to sit around banking on some dude's video getting, disqualified or a score adjustment. So the second the Open was over, I took 2 days off, kind of 2 or 3 days off, got a lot of sleep, got myself reset, and basically started prepping for Iceland as if it was regionals. Here we are, 2 weeks from Iceland. Yeah, so basically where my life's at right now. So we're essentially 2 weeks out from Iceland, so just over, or 2.5 weeks out from Iceland, which I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about the field. I'm excited about the timing of the competition. It's about the time regionals used to be. So, I've had this kind of month-and-a-half period after the Open to really get into it and kind of get excited about it. And just the style of training, we're back into strongman intervals and some more moderate to heavy barbells. If I'm being honest, training for the Open, I don't find all that fun. I think Open style workouts, even though you're kind of pushing the envelope and you're trying to do some new stuff, because the Open is advancing, Open workouts, you just have to do a whole bunch of thrusters at 95 pounds, and there's just certain movements that you have to hammer leading up to the Open, and I just don't find it all that exciting. So I really find regionals and games prep a lot more fun, so it's an exciting time of year for me. I just did the Lowlands qualifier last week, and it went okay, it went pretty well. It was a cool format. They did 3 workouts in 1 day, and you had to do them in a specific order. And I think that format is really cool for this modern day and age of kind of where we're at with sanctionals, because as an athlete, it's one and done. You do it once, 1 day, all the way through, and then you can kind of get it off your back. And I really like that, because the death by qualifiers is a very real thing, depending on what your competition schedule is. So I did all 3 workouts, probably a little too close together. I didn't do as well as I would have liked on the 3rd workout, but at the end of the day, my focus was on Iceland, and I really just wanted to do enough to qualify and then continue on with my training. So I didn't retest the workouts. I didn't try and do them again. I didn't stress too much about them. I just attacked them with whatever I had that day and kind of moved on. They take 40 athletes, and I think I ended up finishing around 15. So again, a good finish, but nothing crazy to write home about. And then I'm doing French Throwdown or French qualifiers this week. So I did France 1 this morning. I'll do France 2 tomorrow morning, and then they have another series of qualifiers next weekend, which will be my final weekend before Iceland. So I'll do the final 2 qualifying events for that next week, and that will be all of my qualifying things done. finally. No more online qualifiers for at least until the Open next year. So then hopefully I'll have Iceland in May. The goal is to win that, and if and when that happens, I will likely be done for the summer. So I won't compete again. I'll get in a couple months of really solid training, build back some basics leading up to the games. If I don't win Iceland, that's the reason I've got kind of lowlands in France in the back pocket, hopefully. So I've got some events that I've qualified for, so that I, give myself as many good opportunities as I can to hopefully get back to the games this year. Yeah. So. Delicious. No, so this is, like I said, this is a pretty standard training day for me. The only real change up is that usually the first thing I do would be the conditioning work that I'm doing this afternoon. So usually the very first thing I would do would be some of my aerobic or my anaerobic machine work. So my running, skiing, biking, swimming, whatever that is. I usually do that first thing in the morning. But today I wanted to give the energy preference to the qualifier. So I wanted to make sure that I hit that qualifier feeling really good with everything that I had. So yeah, like I said, I did that first, but other than that, it's a pretty standard time frame for me, and that's pretty normal. Usually I'll start training around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, train for an hour, hour and a half. I'll break for a shake or maybe a small meal, and then I'll get the bulk of my training session in till about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then that'll be about it for the day. So I don't usually train in the afternoon much. Yeah, so like I said, thanks for joining in, guys. One last thing, I guess some people have asked about nutrition. I've been lucky enough to work with Paleo Power Meals for the last, 4 years now, 3 or 4 years now. So obviously their food's delicious, healthy, incredible, macro labeled. So whenever I travel, I always try and bring at least a training meal with me. So I've got some grilled chicken strips, again, all macro labeled. And then I've got some roasted veggies and sweet potatoes that I brought for a post-training meal. So I'll be eating that here shortly. And that's, again, post-training meals for me. I eat it's usually about 90 grams of carbs after a training session, about 40 grams of protein, and then I don't have any fat. So I'll have a good healthy serving of vegetables, a lot of a carb, so rice or potatoes usually, and then some real food. So I think it's really important, and my nutritionist really harps on getting real high quality food when I'm done my main training session for the day, and then using supplements as a way to continue to stay hydrated and stay fueled through training. But once training's over, again, the importance is really on a high quality meal. So got this with me for my travel day.